I got my chakra binder today. Yeah, found it. So we're going into the chakras together. Oh yeah, that's good. So
hold it for you.
hold it during the whole thing. I did it for you. So we're talking about rooting in love. And so this is a chakra. We're taking 7 weeks to go. 7 months, wouldn't that be horrible? 7 months. Make sure you go to the bathroom before we leave. 7 weeks, because 7 weeks we're leading up to Christmas, and Christmas is, you know, the idea of it in A Course in Miracles is about the rebirth of Christ within each of us, and Christ is a Christ consciousness which is good and beautiful and holy, dwells within each of us, is impeccable. And so to find our way there, the only thing that blocks that is fear, and fear comes in a million different flavors, and we get to move through the chakras, and the chakras will help us to see in what specific area we might have some blocks, whether that's in our origin of family. We might have some issues with our families. No. It could be within our own creativity, or, you know, old past heartbreaks, or the inability to speak our truth or our words. So each of the chakras takes us to a different conversation about our being, and we get to dive in deep with that. And you know, I kind of hold the space for telling stories and asking questions. So if you have your bulletin or a pen or something, or if, you know, you might want to write down some questions that come up around, we'll go into the overview of the chakras and then the root chakra, because we don't have your answers. We have your questions that can help you get to your answers, but you have the answers. So we're going to invite you to take note of some questions if you feel inspired to go deeper this week. And there's a ton of stuff to support you in studying this modality of the chakras. So the chakras come from the Vedas, which is one of the oldest traditions in the Hindu tradition. It's from the Hindu religion. And it was taught by Brahmin, and Brahmin would, before we even had the ability to write anything down, they would carry it to each other through the oral tradition of telling stories to each other. So that's how they would carry it. Brahmin are Hindu priests, and they were responsible for, you know, the sacred, maintaining sacred wisdom. And I feel like you're sitting up and paying attention today.
Well, I try not to twist my spine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We're going to put you in prayer for that?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Oh, because you're chakra. Durr.
Keeping aligned.
I love that. Love it. A plus, Kathy. A plus. So that's funny. So the Brahmins were responsible for teaching, for holding sacred wisdom, and for maintaining that sacred wisdom got delivered with clarity, right? And they still have a beautiful wealth of ways of being with each other. And one of the things that the Hindus do is they have a thing called puja, which is a daily devotion that they do every single day. You can Google that and find out how to do your own puja. But, you know, some of us already do something related to a puja. It's an early morning spiritual dedication. But the word puja means flower act. Isn't that funny? Flower act, right? So when you think about that, how does a flower act? You know, she kind of just like reaches for the sun, grows and blooms, allows herself to bloom, right? In the Hindu religion, they go crazy for the lotus flower. That's their thing. The lotus flower represents fertility and divinity and a symbol of well-being, and it's sacred. It's actually sacred to them, and they use it in the chakras. Each chakra, when you study the chakras, they show it as a lotus flower. Some of them with different number of petals. But the lotus flower comes with a great story too. And the story of the lotus flower is that the lotus is first conceived in the muck and mire of water. It's in this murky, dirty, gross water, and it starts to move up and begin its journey through this water. And it comes up and it comes up and it keeps rising, and it opens up. Finally, when it reaches the air, it unfolds. And you would think, after being in all that muck and dirt, that it would have blotches or be affected by it, and it's not. It's pristine, it's perfect, it's beautiful. And so my wish for you in this, pre-holiday season is that you take that journey to your own pristine nature, because that's who you are. We can all recognize ourselves in that story of the lotus. We are all created good, beautiful, and holy. The last judgment, when we say we're going to get to the last judgment, is the first judgment. God said, you're good, beautiful, and holy. And we got all confused in the way back, and then we get back, and it's the same story. You're good, beautiful, and holy. Simple, easy peasy. So that's the lotus flower. In the Buddhist tradition, the lotus represents potential. The rising lotus can be seen in the awakening consciousness that unfolds when it meets the light, and we get to see ourselves that way too. And so the 7 week into the chakras is to access greater wisdom and to reach for greater awareness. And that really, you can use any modality to get there. You can use the Bible, you can use 12-step, you can use A Course in Miracles to access information and to gain greater awareness. That's what we're all here to do, to expand our consciousness so we can come unencumbered, so that we don't get hung up and strung out in the murky messagings of the world. We've all got some murky messaging. All of us, if you're here, you've probably been through some dirty water. You know what I mean? They say religion is for people who want to get to heaven and or don't want to go to hell, and spirituality is for people who've already been there. So that came up in our 12-step. So if you've already been there, you're probably here now, where it's just like, I'm not coming out of fear, I'm coming out of thirst. I just want to know more about how good my God is. In any good spirituality, a religious tradition, there's that perfect merging and melding that's talked about in every philosophy. Sometimes they call it universal consciousness, holy divine, self-realization, enlightenment, nirvana, kundalini. All of these things are the same thing. There are Holy Communion. The Catholics call it Holy Communion. But it's not sequestered and segregated to us symbolically taking something or having a ritual. Holy Communion happens right now as you recognize your perfection. As you recognize that God is you, that you are one with God, that you are an extension of God's love. Now, this is the place that we realize that there's no place where God ends and we begin. There's no place where God ends and we begin. We're extensions of all that is good and beautiful and holy. That's what the lotus knows. That's what is ours to know. So sometimes we fall asleep to this. We fall asleep, and then we get murky. But that's okay. I remember when I first came into teaching the chakras. Reverend Mark Anthony Lord down at Bodhi was doing a series on the chakras. And I had known about the chakras when I was younger and I started yoga, but he came to me and he said, I'm not going to be in town for the overview of the chakras, so could you kick it off for me? And I was like, oh yeah, sure I can. He's like, you know about the chakras, right? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. No. But if he had asked me if I'd known about Russian underwater basket weaving, I would have been like, yeah, got it. I'm good to go. I can cover that for you. Penny Maya Prushki, do you speak Russian? That's all I know about Russian, and that's about all I knew really about the chakras at the time. So very little. Plus, because it's such a huge wealth of wisdom, So I took a crash course in the chakras for like a month out of vanity. Like, I got to show up now, I was not being within my wheel to say no. I don't know that, I was such a people pleaser. And so, that, in some ways that benefited me. Also, another thing that benefited me, might benefit you, is that when I find myself wanting to learn something, I teach it. It's really scary, but it works. So I took a crash course in it, and I went and during that time, I fell in love with the chakras. I just fell in love with them. I was like, wow, this really is wonderful information. And there's chakra practitioners here, actually. Joan is one of them. Letty uses the chakras. There's a lot of practitioners who use this chakra in their work. So anyway, so I did not know, but I did learn. I came to learn, and I actually started teaching a class. I fell so in love with them. I literally created a curriculum called Chakra Bloom, and it was all women really would come, and we would go through the chakras together for 7 weeks. So I'm excited that I get to use that curriculum here at Speakeasy. Sometimes you create things and then they sit on the shelf, and you're like, oh, I got to do that, and it's like, it's better to kind of merge things. So I'm merging what I had done with what I'm able to do today. So we're going to go through 7 weeks together. When I would teach those those chakras during that week, what I noticed was that the biggest thing was that women would come weary and wounded and worried, you know. And when I was teaching, I always teach with stories, and so the story came to me about a woman who was worried and weary and wounded, and I felt that way too in some ways in my life. And so the story came about this woman who was walking a long, long, long walk, you know, and very tired, and she's just exhausted. And she finally just collapses at the foot of this beautiful grandmother tree. And she says to the grandmother tree, like, I'm done, I'm cooked, I got nothing left, you know, I'm worried, I'm wounded, and I'm weary. And the grandmother tree says, well, don't worry, I got the medicine for you. You know, it's just 2 beautiful steps, you know. And the first one is just look what I do what I do. Root down into this moment, root right here. Like, practice the art of rooting, of being right here. Like, don't go anyplace else. Just be still and know this moment. What does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? Be still and know God. You know, when we say be still and know God, it doesn't say know God and be still. It says be still and know God. It's in that order for a reason. If we're running, we're not going to be able to know God. We're going to know chaos. So being still is so important. So the woman, she practiced the art of being still. She anchored herself into this moment. For days and nights and nights and days, she came and sat by this tree and practiced the art of stillness that sometimes we could call meditation, mindfulness. And then when she was done, she was like, okay, I got it. She got up to go, and the tree said, wait, there's another step. And she said, well, what else could I need but being still? And she said, well, look what else I'm doing with my branches. And she said, am I lifting them sideways and intertwining with my neighbors? You know, am I reaching down towards my roots? No, I'm lifting them to the skies, to my divine. You know, so that's for you to do now as you move from your place of stillness. Now you get to use all that you have for a dedication to your divine. And if you practice those 2 things, you'll have balance. And what we're basically showing you there is that the roots are the root chakras, and the reaching towards the sky is the crown chakra. In between those 2 chakras are 5 other chakras. Now, the truth is there's actually many, many chakras, but those are the 7 main chakras, and those are the ones that we're going to focus on as we move through these 7 weeks. So, so the other chakras are, we have the root chakra, and they're all connected to a color. Isn't that fun? So they're all connected to a color. So the root chakra is red. The sacral chakra is yellow. The solar plexus is orange. The solar plexus is yellow. The heart chakra is green. The throat chakra is blue. The third eye is, and it's about intuition, is violet. And then the crown chakra is white. Some of those vary, you know, in different ways. You'll see different, you know, but mostly they stick to those variations. And so when I was actually very first introduced to the chakras, it was when I was in California, and I just started my yoga practice. I was about 23 years old, and maybe a little bit later, and I was going through a devastating divorce, and I started doing yoga because it saved my life. And yoga is where, you know, we yoke the physical to the spiritual, and I was definitely ready and thirsty for more spiritual connection. And so I would go to this yoga class, Brian Kest. Oh, so hot. Anyway, I was a single woman at the time. I can't believe I said that. Anyway, not as hot as my husband, of course. But the man got me to yoga class. That's all I'll say about that. And he showed us the chakras, and I was like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, just move out of the way so I can watch you. And so he told us the chakras, and I saw, oh, it was the rainbow. And I remember when I was a little girl, when my mom died, my dad said, reach for a symbol, and it will connect you to your mom. And my symbol for my mom, you know, my dad's symbol is dolphins. My mom was a rainbow. Because I remember when I was little, I was thinking, like, well, what happens after the big storm? Is Noah brought that God brought Noah a rainbow to show forgiveness, and that we would come through. And so that was my symbol for my mom. And so he showed me this rainbow, and immediately I thought, like, oh, here's that symbol again. You know, I'm in a storm right now with this place where I felt fractured in a million ways from that divorce. And I thought, okay. Now, I didn't go deep into the chakras at that time, as you know. I just thought, okay, I kind of understand that. But I did begin to you know, yoga can do to great healing as well, and I began to do that. And one of the fractured stories I gave up was that I was abandonable. you know. And at the time that I was in that relationship with my former husband, I really believed I was an abandonable. So, and that was because of a story that I had about my mom abandoning me. So the only script I was willing to play with anyone who came into my close circle was, I'm abandonable. If you can abandon people, let's hook up, you know. And I found some people who were masters at abandoning. Until I healed and recognized that I was no longer abandonable. That's root chakra stuff. And so that's where we get to do our own work. If we continue to move from these fractured places, we're going to get fractured experience. But the thing about the chakras is they make us ask questions. They make us question these beliefs that we've been tagging along with us for so long, that we've just accepted as, oh, this is just who I am. I just have bad luck in this area. It's just not true. That's just an idea that we have accepted. So it's worth the time to reflect as we move towards Christmas. On our way to a deeper journey, to reveal, to reflect, to release, to regenerate, to restore ourselves, all those other R words, to get us to a place of holiness. The chakras can be directional, like a personal map of who you are and who you've been and what you've agreed to. And the outside world cannot be transformed if we don't transform the inner world. That's how we transform the outside world. We can't, you know, move the chairs around on the Titanic. That's going to be exhausting for us. So this is the work that we get to do in the internal temple. So we're going to go on it together. It's a colorful journey. I hope that you come, you know, for the whole series, you know, that you show up and you make a commitment to yourself to show up to the whole series. And you can do it in very fun ways. Like I said, there's tons of information out there. You know, dressing for the chakra, which I did today, eating certain foods, having affirmations. I actually have a whole list of recorded affirmations that I can send to you through email if you want those, if you want to listen to affirmations in your car. Lorna does some meditations on chakras, is that right? So Lorna's doing a chakra meditation series right now. So we just did a chakra meditation in Meditation Station. So you know, if you're ready, you can dip into this pretty deeply. So we're going to talk about the root chakra. The root chakra is about trust and stability, which is interesting because, you know, it's hard for us to acquire a bolder degree of trust and stability because we live in the sands of time. We live in these things that shift and change, and it's hard for us to hold on to that idea of stability. But with Course in Miracles, we have this beautiful direction of where to actually place our trust. And it says, the teachers of God have trust in the world. And the teachers of God have trust in the world because they have learned that it's not governed by the laws of the world. It's governed by a power, capital P, so I said it stands for Pam this morning, capital P, that is in them but not of them. This power that keeps all things safe. I mean, if you believed in a God, a power that kept all things safe, wouldn't that extend your trust in it? This power that comes through the teachers of God. Teachers of God are anyone who teaches love over fear. So that's who you are. Teachers of God, and shows them a forgiven world. So basically, the ability to create and to foster trust means that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything is for me and that nothing is against me. How could it be any other way? I'm not invested in separation or in the idea of devil or bad people or whatever. You know, it's not bad people, it's just maybe bad choices or maybe people that are scared. The worst thing that we have in this world are scared people. And what do we do with scared people? Judge them? Like, yeah, that's worked. Believe me, I've tried it. Judgment doesn't work. It just makes them feel more fractured and separate. So we get to love, we get to be curious, we get to place conversations where we wanted to have divisions. You know, that's why we sit in a circle here, so we can have a conversation. You know, you might be sitting here thinking about your own spiritual background, thinking, well, that doesn't work for me, but today you get to say it. You know, you get to bring it to the party. So it says, so it goes on to say, with this power, when this power has once been experienced, it's impossible to trust your own petty strength again. Who would attempt to fly with the teeny wings of a sparrow when the mighty power of an eagle has been given him? That's such a great question. That might be a question you want to take with you. Like, why am I struggling with my teeny wings when I could lean into the competent wings of God? Apparently, she has a whole army of winged fellows up there called angels Like, why don't we like tap into that energy that comes through us? And it says, who would place their faith in the shabby offerings of the ego when the gifts of God are laid before him? And I would even say to lay before them because they come through us. To the degree that we're willing to extend that love, that's what we'll get to see in the world. So the world is shifty, it's a shifty, sandy place, but when you walk in this love of God, it becomes very solid. It becomes very safe. It becomes very miraculous and majestic, you know, where you get to trust in this peace that is for you. If you place your trust in God. If you place your trust in man, if you start to build alternative altars to pills and people and procedures, you know, you're going to be let down because there's only so much that one person or one thing can actually bring to the party. But this idea of God's love is infinite. So when you're talking about your root chakra, if you have an energetic feeling of around people, places, or things, you might want to get curious about that. Where you feel flustered and unsettled, where you feel greedy and needy, where you feel you want to control things, where you are quick to anger, where you lack a degree of drive or confidence, right there, that area is showing you where you might have root issues to heal up. You know, you might want to consider to do some root work around that. When a person has compromised root chakra, they can experience the feeling of being lost, you know, or less than or not fitting in. We've all experienced that, the feeling of being lost, less than or not fitting in, always trying to find their way outside in the world. There's a beautiful story, a wizard. It's a great symbolic story of the chakras. People have used it pretty often, but I like to tell it in that, you know, first of all, Dorothy was out looking. She was like restless, that restless being within all of us. It was like, you know, this is boring. Where's my people? Where's my tribe? I don't feel at home here. I want to go someplace where troubles melt like lemon drops, you know, and get out of this gray experience. And I want to see the technical experience of the rainbow. I know there's more. She had root chakra issues. But when you look at the story, what you can tell, yeah, of course she did. You know why? Where was her moms and dads? Roots are about your origin of family. If you have issues with your moms and your dads, you're going to have problems. She was with Auntie M. Who the hell was Auntie M? Who was that? Didn't even look like her mom. I don't even think it was an aunt or a grandma. It was just some lady, right? So no wonder she didn't feel comfortable. And then all those guys, you know? She looked like she was all alone on that little farm by herself with old Auntie M and the crazy witch trying to get her dog. Okay, who wouldn't want to escape? So... But she goes about it in the outside world. She doesn't go in the inside world, right? She starts to run outside. I'm going to find a different place to bring me peace instead of I'm going to go within and find peace. So she starts to run out, and literally the universe shows her how she's being totally unrooted. She's lifted. Her house is lifted in a tornado. When you dream of a symbol of a house, it means yourself. So symbolically, she's in herself and she's not connected to anything. Isn't that kind of sad? Makes me a little bit sad for Dorothy and for any place within us that we feel that way. Then she lands in this odd place, this new place, and she meets these characters. And one of the characters she meets is Glenda the Good Witch. And Glenda comes to her and she literally freaking roots her. She roots her with those red ruby slippers. And she won't let her take those ruby slippers. People try and take them. She's like, no, you got to know who you are. You got to root into yourself. You're going to go on a journey now. She goes on the hero's journey with these red ruby slippers. That's why I wore my ruby slippers. And she begins to find herself. You know, she begins to go and meet, you know, call back to herself the idea that she wants to connect with her heart, that she wants to connect with her mentality, that she wants to connect with her own courage. And these other people are symbols of those people that live within each of us that we have to nurture as well. They are related to some of the other chakras, but Dorothy is the root chakra, and she gets to be grounded. So she goes about, she's looking for her home on her hero's journey. She finds the good witch. And this good witch gives Dorothy that rooting. And she gets to tell her, it was in you all along. You know, so another good question is, who are those mentors around you? Who are those good witches? Do you have some good witches in your life who are willing to root you to the moment and say, hey, you got this, you got this. You don't got to go there and do that and be there and be a piece of somebody else's puzzle. You're complete unto yourself. Root in this. Root in this. So that's, if you don't have that, you know, get that. get that. If you want that, be it for somebody else. And so if you're a kite without an anchor, you get yourself an anchor. You know what I mean? If you're an anchor, you find some kites. You know, that's the balance we talked about, love and law. So we can create, even if you have those blocked places, those fractured places, you can get healing. You can begin to root yourself down. Rooting means to settle and be rooted in a particular place of belonging, you know, to put down roots. And we heal the roots not by pruning the branches. That's not what we do, because that won't work. We heal the roots by going to the roots. And the roots are healed and nurtured by what you read and what you say and what you eat. Like really what you feed yourself. That's how the roots get nurtured. The stories that you tell. So if you're telling stories that aren't really nurturing your roots, it might be time to reevaluate that. When I held that story of being abandonable, you know, that's what I got. But today I tell new stories. These are some other things that we can do to root down for our root chakra. Meditate. You can even meditate on the red lotus, you know. See what that brings you. When I think about the red lotus, I think about that regal red bloodline to God. You know, nobody talks about that. But you are a child of God. Your bloodline is that of God's. You're an extension of God. So don't think that your body, your blood is separate from God. You are an extension of it, and everything can be used for your highest and greatest good. Another thing to do is to dance, to listen to music, to center yourself, to do yoga, to cuddle your pets. Really, it's very grounding. If you think it's grounding, it probably is grounding. So think about the things that ground you. Taking walks in nature, being mindful, feeling your connection to the earth, like literally thinking about yourself being rooted, cleaning your basement, lighting candles, watering your houseplants. I did all 3 of those this week, and my basement was a big mess. But I didn't want to say I'm done, but I felt really good. And I was like, well, no wonder sometimes I feel chaotic, because I have all this junk energy that needs to go. Joan, like I said, can do reflexology on you. That's a beautiful thing. I don't know if you've ever had reflexology, but I will tell you that one time I had reflexology, it was like my mind was blown. It was like some of the most beautiful healing work I've ever experienced. It's surprising I haven't gone back. Maybe I will during this week of rooting down. So, and get yourself a pair of red shoes, red socks, you know, another way. So, in closing, for new people, what we do after we kind of have a conversation, and so anyone can share about anything that comes up for them, what maybe their own story that they want to let go of. But you know, the root lives in the unseen side of life. This is what my internal teacher told me this week. The roots live in the unseen side of life, and I thought, yeah, that's really true. And that's the same for our spiritual connection. You know, our true roots live in our spiritual connection, which seems to be the unseen side of life. And so it'd be important for us to care for those roots. You know, instead of going to the gym, go within, and then go to the gym. Just made that one up. Because the tree is only as strong as its roots, you know? And that's the truth for us as well. We're only as strong as that, you know, that we want to put into our roots. When a baby roots for its mother's milk, you know, it roots around like this thirsty hound for its mother's milk. And the baby and the mother's milk are so miraculous. It's like you and your God. That milk is amazing, the mother's milk. It has everything you need in it. It has that antibiotics, it has all the nutrients, it has warmth and love. It carries energetically so much good. And that's like for us. We're rooting for God when we're rooting into ourselves. We're literally rooting for God. I know we were rooting for the Cubs, but now we're going to turn some rooting for God. So the question is, those are actually some of the questions. What are you rooting for? What are you rooting in? How are you showing up and standing in your truth? And you have those answers. So I invite you to go to your roots. That's the word. So what do you think? I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, or you can go ahead and sign up for our newsletter at speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com so we can keep the conversation going. Because Speakeasy is all about engaging in engaging conversations. Everything is better when we all share our voice. I'm Maureen Muldoon, your spiritual vixen, reminding you to love more and fear less, and don't forget to laugh. What do you say?